as I know our wrestling fans are all geared up for this weekend. Region 8 tournament going on all day long at Egg Harbor Township High School. Going to bring in John O'Kane from the Press of Atlantic City to get his take. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Love this wrestling-heavy Saturday morning.
I was a little bit distracted just now watching some baseball stuff, getting all fired up for the baseball season.
That's right.
We got to make it through the winter sports, so real exciting time in terms of high school wrestling. These last 3 weekends, last 2 weekends of February, first weekend of March, is really what it all comes down to. And you've been covering this stuff for years. Obviously, the region tournament, just a great atmosphere over there at Egg Harbor Township, and all these guys looking to punch their ticket to Atlantic City. How exciting is this Saturday for you? I mean, you know all these guys, you know all the names, and it really comes down to let's see who's best on the mat.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I love state tournament and everything at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. Great atmosphere in the historic Boardwalk Hall there. Wrestlers from all around the state, 10,000 people watching, but in a lot of regards, for a wrestling nerd like me, you kind of almost love this Saturday of regions. These are all guys from South Jersey, lower part of South Jersey here, and in a lot of ways, it's more fun than that state tournament in that these guys have been, a lot of them have been avoiding each other all year, bumping up, bumping down, depending on how matchups dictate kind of thing. But this weekend, there's nowhere to go. This semifinal round, particularly here Saturday morning, is one of my favorites of the year because, this is some of the most exciting matchups. Some of these guys that have been, didn't hit each other in different dual tournaments, in meets and things like that now they have nowhere to go. It's just a great round of wrestling. Definitely looking forward to it. And I'll tell you what, you mentioned it. The crowd last night at Egg Harbor Township was one of the best I've seen here since it switched over from Absegami.
Oh, they were going nuts.
It was wild. I'll tell you what.
That Schwab matchup, the Augustino matchup.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Worthy-Solomon matchup, the Paulsboro freshman there, standout Worthy, beating Solomon last second takedown. I mean, there was just one wild matchup after another. You can kind of see, depending on where the crowd was going nuts, different cheering sections. It was a fun night last night.
And how about the coaches, running across the mat, trying to get explanations from the ref? I mean, it got pretty heated at times.
Absolutely. Well, I could do without the antics of Ralph Ross, but he's been doing it since the beginning of time. Now he's a Deptford there. He's not even in his coach's he's not even in his kid's corner. He's running across the mat challenging
right?
calls. Never been a huge fan of his antics, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Some of these guys get passionate and fired up, and it's great to see this time of year.
What was your takeaway from last night? We had on Nick Costco here in the beginning of the show. We had on Josh Friedman giving his take. What was your biggest takeaway from last night? It's a better region than people realize. I know everybody's talking about up north and the Bergen Catholics of the world and stuff like that. There might not be that, 4 or 5 state champions coming out of Region 8 necessarily, although I think you'll be surprised. Some of these guys will make a run and make their way into the state finals. But it's one of the deeper regions. It's maybe the deepest the region's been in a few years here, I think. You mentioned Wyszynski and stuff like that earlier in the show. I mean, that's a 7 seed with 1 loss. I mean, like there's Justin Bishop from Mainland, the 9 seed that had one loss coming into the weekend, or 2 losses coming into the weekend. I mean, you don't see that much depth that often. There's a lot of great matchups in the quarterfinals. Even in the prelims, you got some great matchups, and you're going to see some even better ones here today in the semifinals. How tough is it for a guy when you lose Friday night? You got to come back. You got to win 3 matches to advance. How tough is that mentally to get through that day and to keep that intensity up to where if you lose, your season's over?
It is. You're absolutely right, and I think it's more mental than anything. I mean, a lot of these guys, and it has been done. I kind of remember Pinelands Regional, a little bit up north, Pinelands Regional, Tom Pakalakua last year. He was one of the first ones since the state tournament started letting you wrestle back from the prelims. He was one of the first ones to wrestle all the way back to third. Won something 5 or 6 straight matches against the best in the state. But he just had that. He had the right mentality where it's what the heck do I have to lose? I'm going to go out there. It's my senior year, and he left it all out there. I mean, he hit some crazy moves, and like you said, I think it's more mental this time of year because all these guys are talented. You don't accidentally get to this deep into the tournament and stuff like that. So they have the talent to do it, but you just know when you lose Friday that you're going through a meat grinder. You know that you're going to have to wrestle 3 matches, and depending on how the other matches fall up, you might have a 1 or 2 seed get knocked off. All of a sudden, you've got to get past that guy just to get on the podium and survive another day, so to speak. So it really is. It's tough, and it's mentally daunting. And you'll see this time of year, too. The other thing I kind of noticed last night a lot, you see these matches get to the third period. A lot of these guys have dominated their way through the season. You've got some of these guys that pin their way first period, second period pins all year.
they get to this time of year, that's not happening. You're wrestling in the third period. You kind of see who did the work in the wrestling room and who's in better shape. And there were some matches that stood out last night. Some guys ran out of gas. You have to be in great shape to get through 3 matches against these caliber of wrestlers.
Yeah, and that's something that doesn't really get mentioned a lot when you talk about these star wrestlers. They might be 28-2, 30-1, but maybe 20 to 25 of those wins have been only lasted a minute or a minute and a half, and now you're talking about having to go 6 minutes. What's the mentality there? How do you, if you've been very successful throughout the year and had a lot of first period pins and that kind of thing and forfeits and whatnot, how do you get to that point where you can mentally stay in it for 6 minutes?
It's tough. You're right. I mean, it's some of these guys are victims of their own success. I mean, you see the Nick Suriano from Burton Catholic. I remember a few years back, again, going up north, Southern Regionals, Frank Molinaro, who went on 4-time All-American, won an NCAA title. He was so dominant that it got to the point that he almost refused to pin people the last couple weeks of his senior year. He was kind of he would take him down, tilt him, but wouldn't really finish off that pin. Would kind of cut him, let him back up. And it was almost like, he wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but he knew that in order to get through that state tournament, he was going to have to go 6 minutes at some point. I remember Josh Berman from St. Joseph a few years ago. I know that's kind of a random reference, but Josh was, headlocked people from all over the mat. He was pinning people in 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds throughout the year. He still got his way to the state tournament, but you almost wondered if it kind of caught up to him a little bit. And like you said, in terms of schedule, some of these guys, 28-1, 30-2, different records like that. In a lot of regards, you see somebody like St. Augustine Prep, one of those guys with 5 or 6 losses. You'd rather wrestle one of those guys with 1 or 2 losses from one of these other schools that maybe isn't wrestling the same caliber of schedule. Because these St. Augustine Prep guys are talented. Egg Harbor Township's wrestled a tough schedule. Absagammy's wrestled a tough schedule. Millville has some tough matches. Some of these guys, you just know that they're battle-tested. They might have a few more losses, but that's only going to benefit you this time of year when you have to go 5 and 6 minutes. You're not decking kids in 20 seconds for the most part this time of year.
John, I'm going to take you into the Wayback Machine a little bit here, back to I believe it was the 90s or so. Damian Hahn, everybody knows that name. I remember watching, I think it was district finals. He was going up against a kid from Brick Memorial. He beat him 25-10. The only 10 points that the kid from Brick Memorial, I felt so bad for this kid. The only 10 points he had were when Hahn would let him up. He would literally drag him from the side of the ring or the circle there all the way back into the middle, work some kind of move, let him up, work some kind of, like you said, trying to get a workout in. I mean, he got to the district final without even breaking a sweat. You
did, and I'll jump in the Wayback Machine with you. The Pat Lynch from Ocean City, Scotty Winston from Jackson Memorial. I know that's a little further up north there, but you're absolutely right. Some of these guys, you got to the point you're covering these matches and you started really feeling for the guys they were wrestling.
I mean, Hahn's literally dragging the kid back by his ankles into the center of the ring.
Exactly, and the kid's almost looking there. I mean, you just know that at least for a split second of time, they have to have thought about just laying down. They're looking into the crowd. They're trying to find mom or grandma, trying to get some moral support. And you just know it had to at least creep into their minds. Maybe that's just me.
Good stuff. We're talking with John O'Kane from the Press of Atlantic City. About a minute or two left, John. What are you looking for today? Some of these lower weights, you got some interesting brother combinations going at it. We mentioned those with Josh Friedman. The Meninos from Gateway, the Kinners from Kingsway. You think all 4 of those guys can stand on the podium in a top spot?
Yeah, those 4 guys you mentioned are really tough. And you're right. I mean, it does. I heard you speaking with Josh earlier. It does really help to have that guy in your own living room, so to speak, that you can kind of throw down with at any given notice. I know I wrote a story earlier this year, and these guys are still alive in the wrestlebacks, and don't be surprised if these guys wrestle back to third. But the Kraus brothers, Callisto's at Oakrest, won the District 32 title. Connor from St. Augustine Prep finished second, lost a tough match to Terrell Coleman. Those guys, they've got a basement wrestling mat. They're not. And I get the feeling that there's times they don't even bother making it down to the basement. They just go right at it on the living room ropes kind of thing.
There you go.
And it's a beautiful thing. And even these guys that have best friends and, some of these wrestling addicts, I mean, it helps to have that guy that you could throw down with and wrestle all the time. Those are the guys that are doing well this time of year. You're absolutely right.
One of the cool things when you get through regions, we saw this last year with Augustino and Roberts, you went at it in districts and regions, and now you're working out with the kid for the week leading up to the state championship. So you kind of put that rivalry aside and become almost teammates for a week or so.
You do, and another example of that, Jim Brady from St. Augustine Prep. He was over here working out at Egg Harbor Township on Monday and things like that. He worked out with Ben Maggio from Apsagami last week. You're right. I mean, Agostino and Roberts were rolling around. This time of year, it really does. Like, even though they're teammates all year long, this time of year it almost becomes a Cape Atlantic League team. And you're seeing these guys join up for workouts and kind of going against other areas. I know Buna joins up with Delphi a lot of times in years past, and it does. You've got to get that workout in, and you've got to get a high level workout in. I mean, the little practices against the JV guys and things like that aren't helping you this time of year.
Good stuff, Oak. We'll see you out there later on today. Region tournament going on all day. Semifinals at 10. Finals later on in the afternoon around 4. So long day for you, but I'm sure you're excited about it.
That's right. One of my favorites of the year. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Good stuff, Oak. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
We'll see you.
All right, that was John O'Kane from the Press of Atlantic City.